lot. And it feels very unfair that I can't just have a bite of birthday cake and then get back into the moment that we're having with my daughter and her birthday. It feels unfair, but that's where I'm at. You know what I mean? There's somebody who can run 50 miles and it's unfair that I can't do that. You know, it's unfair that just a simple day walking around New York makes my feet hurt. That's unfair. There are other people who don't seem to experience life that way. There's lots of unfair in life. Life isn't fair. You know, I loved when my kids were little, they always talked about fair. And my sad message to them was life's not fair. And it's not, you know, unfortunately. Paige Dorian Productions, welcome back to the American Glutton podcast.
It is, as always, a joy, a pleasure, a privilege, and an honor to be here and get to ask you the questions in place of the people.
In place of the people. What are we talking about today, Paige?
Today we're talking about mindset. And, you know, it's funny, before this episode, I was looking online at is the right word, plethora of information. Mm-hmm. When you type in mindset, it's like, whoa, where do I turn? And I think that it's just, there's so much information, and I believe we need to get down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
How does one set their mind? First of all, I'm starting a journey. Second of all, I'm mid my journey. I got to go the long haul. Like, where do you start? What are some tips?
Yeah, I think mindset is a tricky thing. For me, for the longest time, I wanted mindset just to be a decision I made, right? Mm. So like, I'm going to lose weight. And I thought that was mindset. But really, I think that mindset is like a reorientation of your daily thought process on how you're taking on life. And a lot of that doesn't happen, or certainly didn't happen with me based on a single decision. It wasn't like, well, I'm going to eat healthier, therefore I have a better mindset around food. But I wanted it to. I really, really wanted to make a decision and just have that be all it took to attack the world in a different way from my daily stance. But I found that I had to kind of make that decision over and over and over again, like reorienting my point of view to be successful at what I wanted to achieve really kind of required this repetition, reminding myself of what my goals were, reminding myself of the decision I had made, in order to finally, you know, and even still, it isn't like, I don't know, there's this weird thing. I'm envious of people with enduring faith, you know, because that's a version of mindset, right? Like, I know God will take care of it. That's just something you are moving through life, experiencing this idea, this feeling, this concept. And so I wanted to go like, well, I am going to win, and winning is eating healthy and exercise. And I'm going just to have this inner feeling of faith that's going to push me along. And when I have doubts, that inner feeling is going to pave the way. I found it's much more clinical than that. It's much more like, oh no, nothing about the inner part of me is going to get me through. I have to like constantly be doing battle just to get around the garbage that's telling me stay in bed, don't exercise, eat junk, overeat. You're going to be, this desire for comfort from food. All of that had to be chipped away at very, very slowly by reestablishing this decision over and over and over again. And there's a feeling of like unfairness, like I want to behave in a certain way, and that should be enough, that desire in that moment. And then when some other part of me is deviating from that, and I'm going like, well, why am I behaving differently than I decided I wanted to behave? And I feel like tremendously gypped or ripped off by the universe. I just want to make a decision once and have it endure. And that's not been the case for me. And so mindset has really been more even than, the small things that I have to do, the adjustments that I have to make practically or literally in my life. Mindset has been, I'm going to have to remind myself of this. I'm going to have to bring this point of view or this idea of desire up to myself over and over and over again, because that's the easiest part. That's the first fissure in the levees that's going to allow the floodwaters to sweep me away into oblivion once again, which is a place I found myself in so many times. Mindset is probably the most important thing. And I see it talked about like, just like, pull up your bootstraps and just do it. But really I had set up a life where everything was directionally positioned to lead me to fail. And so, having things planned out, thinking about what I'm going to eat long before I'm hungry, that all plays a part in allowing me to be successful with my mindset. Does that make sense?
It does. So like, am I hearing you say then that like first there's a sort of overarching, not decision per se, but just like an overarching.
I think decision is correct.
Okay.
I think it's like, you wake up one day and you go like, I've really had enough of this. I want to change. Right. And I had that idea had occurred many times, but then there's like practical steps to go like, what is it really going to take to change? Right. So in order to get like mindset, there are qualifications that have to be in place of like, it's probably more work than you're willing to do in this moment. So like, can you become willing to do it? Right. There's these questions I asked myself because, I've been thinking about this a lot of a guy who gives the advice, I want to get rich. How do I get rich? And then the advice is like, well, I knew somebody that won the lottery, so you could play the lottery. Like that is, in my opinion, terrible advice to getting rich,
Sure.
Right? Like how many people actually succeed at getting rich by playing the lottery? Not many, very few. If you think about all the people that play the lottery and the handful that got rich, this is not a path to take to achieve that.
Yeah.
And so I think there's like the desire to have something or to achieve something versus the cost of actually getting it and being realistic about that cost and that price and the amount of work it's going to take. And for the longest time, I felt that cost should be paid simply by wanting it.
Oh,
I want something.
I see what you mean. Wow. Right.
I want this thing, therefore I should be working towards it. You know, I should be subconsciously working towards it as well as literally working towards it because I want this thing. That means that the decisions I'm making should be leading me towards that. When really I want this thing, and yet I'm putting no effort into the actual practical steps it might take to achieve this thing. You know, you want to get rich. You got to figure out a way to earn money. You got to figure out a way to save money. You got to figure out a way to earn more money. Like whatever the steps are to getting rich. I personally am not like somebody who's incredibly driven by money and wealth. So this is like a kind of a nebulous example, right? But I think it's simple in the fact that you can paint the picture of like people want to get rich and they play the lottery or they go gamble. And there's a reason that the casinos are these giant behemoth conglomerate corporations, and Vegas is filled with suckers who go home with less money, you know, almost as a rule, than it is filled with people leaving wealthier, right?
Totally.
But you hear about the guy who won a bunch of money in Vegas and you go like, that could be me too. But that's kind of, in my opinion, avoiding the practical steps that the majority have taken, who, if you looked at all the rich people, very few of them got rich playing the lottery. And in fact, I heard some statistic about like the majority of people who won the lottery wind up broke in 2 years or some short period of time. And so it's like, okay, do you want to be rich forever? Do you want to be rich for a year? You know, it could be cool to have $1 billion for a year and blow it on private planes. You know what I mean? And like diamonds for brandy, like that could be fun. That could be a fun game. But like, is that when I picture myself, if I was to go like, I want to be rich, am I picturing that it's only lasting a year?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And the same thing with weight loss. When I would say to myself, I want to have a thinner body, the idea was I would achieve this thing and then it would be permanent, right? It would just, that would be the new way I existed from then on. And even that denies the work necessary. So I'm not thinking through all the steps it might take me. And there's compounding levels of unfairness here because I think about all the thin people I'm envious of, and I don't perceive them to be putting any work or effort into it, right? It's not like something that they have to work super hard to achieve. These people that I want to be like, or these bodies that I want to have similarities to, that's just how they are. So that's just how I am. That's what I want to achieve. None of it's realistic. And then on top of all of that, I come into it with like, well, I want to know why. I want somebody to answer for me why I'm like this. And none of this is going to happen. I'm never going to get a real answer, you know, because if you tell me the one thing, that you give me the one why, I can solve that one thing, but I can't reorchestrate the universe to allow me in my current state to become that quote unquote normal person without any work, right?
Yeah.
I want you to make all fast food disappear. I want you to make all processed food disappear. I want you to make anything that I might overeat disappear so that the only things available are really bland and boring. And then I want you to give me joy in eating those bland and boring things and fill in all of the vacancy within my soul that I'm trying to like patch up and soothe through eating food. I want you to make that possible through, you know, boneless, skinless, boiled chicken breast with no seasoning. I want to get the same feeling of satisfaction through these foods that are going to allow me to stay thin. I want you to do away with food advertising. I want you to, you know, and then there's part of it where I go like, I also think there's like a contagious aspect to all of this. So I want you to make everybody have this normal body. So I'm not even around overweight people because it could make me relapse into being how I was formerly. All of this is nonsense, right? Or if it's like, I desperately wanted it to be these one word things, like it's carbohydrates that are making me fat. I can handle carbohydrates. If you told me all you have to do is not eat carbohydrates and you get the normal body, you get utopia, done. I'm not eating carbohydrates. Or if it's processed, highly ultra processed food, done. I'm not eating that. Or if it's nightshades, or if it's lectins, or if it's just give me what it is, this one kernel thing. All of this denies the kind of work it takes to achieve mindset, which is like a real scope of the problem, a real broad picture of many aspects. And I don't think I never even was able to come up with this in one sitting. I would find stuff over and over again. Well, if I go to the store when I'm really hungry, I wind up buying a bunch of food I don't like. So then now I have to like safeguard that by knowing I shouldn't go to the store hungry. Likewise, I shouldn't cook hungry. I shouldn't sit down to a meal hungry. So I shouldn't let myself get overly hungry. And this could fly in the face of people who are advocates for intermittent fasting. That's why intermittent fasting didn't work for me, because if I save all my food for a tiny little window, I'll wind up overeating in that tiny little window. That's what I do. And this is also something that other people do. I'm not just purely unique in that way.
Oh, no, I can relate more than you know.
Yeah. Mindset is really this kind of broad, realistic view of what it's going to take to achieve the things I want to achieve, and then actually doing the work that's going to require, and continuously readjusting my thinking to put me back in that point of view. That's what I think mindset is.
Yeah. So we're starting with this broad decision. Let's say I need a change. I want to be healthier. I want to lose whatever, right? You start with this. Okay, I'm shifting my current mindset, which maybe could just be laziness or don't care or frustration or anything. I'm not trying to say people are lazy. I'm talking about myself always, but I'm just saying, like, you can shift. You have this current awareness of how it's all going. And then you go, okay, I want to make a change. You need to make a change. So you start with this big, broad decision. And then how does one begin to, so you start with this big, broad decision. And then I know what you're saying at the end of the day, it's a constant, continual, checking in, healthy habits, et cetera, like a permanent change, right? And maintenance, as you talk about. But how do we go from there to here? So I make this decision. What's next?
Yeah. Next is I make this decision. I want to change. Next is figuring out everything it's going to take to achieve that. And then everything it's going to take subsequently to keep it going. Right. And for somebody who's done a lot of diets, I would think that the first thing would be to go like, well, it becomes difficult because I've lost weight on every diet. So what would wind up happening for me is I would kind of steal the aspects of that diet that I found useful in losing weight, and then continue to apply it throughout. Like, well, I know that I did great on keto, so carbohydrates must have something to do with it. And then I also lost weight on the Gundry method, so lectins probably have something to do with it too. So I'm going to do no carbs and no lectins. And we kind of got to get away from our bullshit, to put it lightly, in that if those things had been successful, they would have continued to be successful. And so I had to acquaint myself and try to forget everything I thought I knew and just make a whole new plan on what does fat loss mean? I lost a ton of fat at one point doing a bunch of cardio and not eating a lot of food. That was not sustainable. And it's difficult too, because a little part of me would always say, well, this time will be different. This time I'll just keep doing that thing forever. I'll just keep doing heavy cardio every day forever. I'll just decide to be a little bit hungry forever. And so like really having the hard conversation with yourself of like, well, I've tried that a number of times and I always fail. Why is it different this time? Maybe I need to try something else. Maybe I really need to pivot and find something sustainable. None of this is a fun conversation to have with yourself, because it all is a ton of work, a ton of effort. It's, I want it right now, and this is like 5 times slower than other diets I've done. I can lose weight super fast just drinking shakes, but God, that weight came back fast with a vengeance, So it's like being willing to do that hard work and then really going like, yes, making the decision of like, I'm going to do that, and then remaking it 300 times if you need to a day. I drove by a McDonald's billboard and had to make it again. I woke up and I didn't sleep very well. I had to recognize that today I'm going to be hungrier. Today I'm going to want to derive my energy through fast acting sugars and fats that my body is screaming for because I'm underslept. Well, I have to remake that decision again and again and again.
Yeah. God, it all speaks to this, when you said unfair, right? Like there's this unfairness. I totally know what you mean. And it's kind of like, even as you're saying all this, I'm like, God, it's a lot of work. And now you tell me every day I got to look at this and make a new make another decision or reaffirm the decision I made yesterday or whatnot. Like it is just really, I know it's like, it is unfair, right? For those of us that this doesn't come easy to, or let's say natural, like I think I said this to you once before, but I remember when I was doing the GLP-1s, which were really helpful for me. I remember going out to dinner with a bunch of girls, and it was someone's birthday, and somebody ordered a couple desserts. And I literally just had a bite of one thing and didn't really care for more. And I looked at the other girls, the skinny girls, at the table, and I thought, oh my God, is this what it's like is this what they are like every day without any assistance? So there is this level of unfair of like, why did I get this challenge in life? Why me? Why do I have to keep doing this every day? But hey, that's, maybe the people that like you or me or so many other people out there, well, fine. Maybe this is something that's their challenge, and maybe they don't have a challenge in another area, right? It's like, that's something I try to remind myself of sometimes. It's like, fine, this is my lot in life on this topic, but you know what? I'm pretty good over here on this thing. And thank God I don't have that thing. Or wow, I'm really fortunate I don't have that problem. It's just like I don't know, maybe also sort of like acknowledging or giving yourself a break on the things that are right, in your life.
Yeah, the dessert thing is wild, and that's a perfect way to illustrate unfairness, because I want to also be a person who takes a bite of dessert. You know what I mean? Like 5 people have dinner, and then let's get one dessert and 5 spoons, and everybody gets a bite, or possibly 2 bites, depending on how big it is. But like I only want one, so I want to have my bite, and then I want everybody else to have 1 1/4 bites, and like, it's really, really hard. It's hard because God forbid some people don't even want that bite. And then you got like just an extra bite sitting on a plate, and all of my attention will be on that last bits of dessert sitting there. We went to dinner for Lily's 27th birthday recently.
Wow.
And to be honest, the dinner was not great. It was like some fancy place we'd never been to, and it was cool. And you go into a really so kind of like New York, but like trying to be something that then also kind of felt like Disneyland. You go into a pawn shop, and it's a real working pawn shop, and there's like a doorman out front in a suit, and it's weird. You walk up to this pawn shop, and it's not late at night. Late at night for me was 7:00, and it felt so late to be eating dinner. And there's a guy in a suit who like kind of looks you over and then lets you in, as though at this pawn shop they're just doing huge transactions for just insane things, right? It's like a billionaire's pawn shop or something. But then you go in and it's just an average pawn shop, but then there's another door in the back corner, and you go through that and you come into like this really fancy restaurant with overly loud music, and the food wasn't great. But the dessert was and it was just me and Brandy and Lily, a giant chocolate and peanut butter cake. And there's no way, and this was listed as a dessert for one. They don't say this is a dessert for 10 people. The fucking thing was enormous. I don't think if I had been left alone with it, I could have finished it. Like, at a point, your mouth just goes, fuck you, I can't put any more sugar and fat in me. But like, I was like, I'm going to have a bite of Lily's birthday cake. And then this behemoth of a cake sat there because Brandy and Lily could have 2 bites and then not think about it. And I'm just staring like I'm no longer having conversation with them. I'm just hyper fixated on this cake and another bite. I want to eat it until my body shuts down and says like, you're either going to puke or your mouth actually hurts from the sugar. That's just my lot. And it feels very unfair that I can't just have a bite of birthday cake and then get back into the moment that we're having with my daughter and her birthday.
Yeah.
It feels unfair.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm at. You know what I mean? There's somebody who can run 50 miles, and it's unfair that I can't do that. It's unfair that just a simple day walking around New York makes my feet hurt. That's unfair. There are other people who don't seem to experience life that way. There's lots of unfair in life. Life isn't fair. I loved when my kids were little, they always talked about fair. And my sad message to them was life's not fair. And it's not, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh no, it's not. But yeah, it's finding the things to navigate it and make it as, like reframe it for yourself. Right. And I feel like in what you're talking about in mindset, it is that of like, I don't know, it's just, and what I have learned, from you over this time is just like that constant reframing and constant redeciding and constant resetting. Right. And yes, it may not be fair, but like, what are we going to do about it? We can't do anything except get through it. You can't you can, and I have certainly many times in my life just given up,
Yeah.
Like, what do you say when people say like, it's too hard?
Well, here's the thing. It might be too hard. I do believe that there is a path for each and every person to achieve the things they want to achieve. But I think it's more than just, I want this thing. I think it's like maybe a restructuring of your life, right? Like in very literal terms, I had to change my route home, how I would drive home, to not drive by fast food. And going back even further than that, I avoided a whole neighborhood in Los Angeles for years because that was the neighborhood I bought drugs in. And when I was, and that's not the only thing. It's not like, well, if I just avoid this neighborhood, I'll be okay, right? But there were a practical, literal reshaping of the way I am existing and navigating the world. And I mean navigating literally. And that's just one thing. I'm not saying if you just do that, if you just avoid driving by fast foods, but I'm trying to put it into the context of literally how you're moving through the world might have to change or shift or be altered. Where you shop for your groceries might need to be changed. You might need to go to a new supermarket where, you don't know on aisle 5 is the Entenmann's, and every single time you go to your local supermarket and go, you're going down aisle 5 to the Entenmann's. Maybe you need to go to a new supermarket you're not familiar with and just learn where the things you want to be buying are. Where are the veggies? Where are the whole grains? Where are the proteins, right? And for a while, avoid the sections that might have booby traps in them. But it's that applied to everything. It's that applied to how you drive home. It's that applied to your decision making in the morning. It's that applied to when you go to sleep at night. Are you scrolling on your phone, or are you taking an hour off so that you're not stimulated and watching YouTube videos that you could wind up blowing 2 hours of your life doing? Are you turning the TV off earlier? Are you winding down by reading a book, which is far less stimulating, I think, for me at least, than watching TV or scrolling on my phone? Are you making the adjustments in your life, in every aspect of your life, that it will require to achieve this thing you want to achieve, because it's more than just, I want this thing, right? As a little kid, I could want the big Star Wars Lego set, but if I don't tell my parents, how do they know? You know what I mean? If I'm not talking about it, if I'm not taking that step and then having the dialogue with them about like, well, if you save up your allowance, then you'll be able to buy it in 6 months. And for me as a little kid, that was too much. I couldn't wait 6 months, and I couldn't save my allowance either. I wanted to spend that, my $2 a week or whatever it was for doing my chores. And so it's going like, well, if you want this thing, you're going to have to save up your allowance. What's it going to take? You're not buying anything else in the interim. And then, you're only renting it. You're not getting it. It's not something permanent. Once you get to where you think you want to be, it's not like you own the house outright. You still have to pay property tax. Even if it's a cash purchase, there are still going to be fees involved, right? There's going to be the power and water, the upkeep on the maintenance of the house. Do you have a tree? Are you going to need to get it trimmed? Do you know how to trim a tree? Like all of that, it still takes work. There's still upkeep. I mean, this, you're dealing with this right now. You have an incredible house. Did you buy that house and go like, well, I'm done. It's just going to be perfect forever. Or as you know, I'm sorry to air your laundry right now, you're doing a massive thing to your house. Your house is under construction and all kinds of other stuff. And it's like, well, that costs money, that put you out, it's effort, like all of this stuff continues to happen in order to keep the house going.
Oh, yeah. No, let's talk about that. I'm staying at a friend's because I'm tenting for termites right now. So, right. You think it's like, great, I bought my house. And then you're like, but it is constant upkeep because nothing stays the same, right? Nothing stays the same. Things either get better or worse, or you can say expand or contract, or you can say, you can say it in any way you want, but it's true. It is like constant. Yeah. Upkeep. The house is a great analogy in my mind because it's like, look at your body that way, you know, or your health or whatever. It's like, cool. Okay. You always talk about this. Like, I've reached my goal, but that's not the end. The goal is the end of your life, or, you know, and feeling this way toward the end. So it's a great analogy. And like, if you don't care for something, I mean, let's say like, if you don't care and continue to, you know, maintain, if we're going to use maintenance, if you don't care and continue to maintain your relationship, kind of goes to shit. If you don't maintain your friendship, if you don't, you know, whatever. So it's such a reminder, just talking about it in this way, as opposed, you know, that it can apply to your health, your wellness, your longevity, all the things, you know?
Yeah. And I think mindset is constantly putting yourself back into that perspective of fully confronting the reality of what it's going to take, and then your willingness, like, you know, mindset, because you were willing at one point. There was a spark, a moment where you went, I want this thing. And if you confronted what it actually took and you got onto that path and you were willing in that moment, mindset is constantly getting back into that perspective. And so that perspective for me is constantly being battered around. I'm doing a movie right now and I'm away from home. It's a new grocery store that is not quite ideal. You know, it's in a strange place that's smaller. And so like I had to go in and go like, well, what's all the normal stuff I get? Well, none of that exists here. So it's all new stuff. What's a version that I can do? And then these motherfuckers are, the entire thing's at night. The whole movie's at night. So where I'm normally going to bed at 10 p.m. and getting up at 5 a.m. every day. And then I go from the East Coast to the West Coast. And so I'm waking up at 3 out here. We're not even going to bed until 6 a.m. That's 9 a.m. in New York. And I'm like, I sleep like 2 hours at a time. I'm taking naps like some geriatric. It's crazy. The whole thing is crazy. And I'll tell you, it's really hard to get myself to the gym and to eat right. And mindset is going, what do I want? I think there's a little bit of like recognizing the circumstances are a little different. So when I'm not walking out of the gym pouring sweat, I'm not beating myself up, because there is also the potential that I've not slept in a month now. And, you know, I could hurt myself if I don't give myself the grace to be like, okay, this is going to end. This is not permanent. You will not live the rest of your life on 2 hours of sleep a night, you know? And so we're going to get back home pretty soon, and we're going to rest, and we're going to, you know, have all our normal comforts of the grocery store we're accustomed to, where we know exactly where to go and we don't have to walk by, you know, the just ridiculously opulent selection of Halo Top that they have out here. Like, who knew Halo Top now had add-ins? So where you're like stoked because Halo Top's like 300 calories a pint. Now they got the 600 calorie a pint Halo Top with a bunch of Snickers bars in them or something like that. Like, who knew I needed that? You know, but when I walk by it at the grocery store here and I've slept for 2 hours, that looks fucking good to me. You know, that's like, boom, getting that. That's going in the shopping cart. I'm going to feel guilty about that for a week. But mindset comes in and goes like, okay, this is temporary. What's the best we can do under these circumstances? I think that's also being realistic with yourself about what's the best you can do. And that might be, you know, Paige, I'm going to level with you. I've had to come to the quite depressing realization that I will not be a Victoria's Secrets model. This is tragic. This is heartbreaking. I'm not going to get to wear the angel wings and wear lingerie and walk on the runway. And that is devastating to me, as well as probably to you. But I know Brandy was really broken up when I sat down with her and I said, this goal we've been working towards, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I know. It's leveling with yourself. Like, okay, it's not going to be that. But, I had something happen not that long ago where I used to always just have this little bit of failure in my mind of, I didn't want to be a Victoria's Secret model, but I had like this sort of thing that hung around with me of like, well, I guess this body just isn't going to ever look like this thing I thought in my 20s was the ideal thing, and it like, Brandy teases me about this because for me, it was always just skinny, like being skinny. It had nothing to do with health. It had nothing to do with muscle tone. It was just like skinny and not the 90s, the skinny. And, so anyway, I would always have just like this little sense of, I don't know, well, I guess that's never going to happen. Woe is me. And I think recently,
and it's disappointing.
It's disappointing. It's unfair. It's all these things. Why is it so easy for that friend of mine to just look great or have the discipline to go to the gym, whatever, or just to be naturally skinny? And in the last like year, I'd say I've kind of worked through that where it is not bothering me in that way. It's kind of like, I am happy actually with where I'm at. And I know I need to improve and get to the gym more. And I know I need to be more mindful of, discipline sometimes because I can let it in those moments where I'm tired or I'm having a crazy work week or this or that. I can like kind of loosen up, right, on my discipline. So it is a constant reminder of mindset and having the right one. But, yeah, I guess it's nice actually to just kind of go, okay, fine. Not going to be the Victoria's Secret model, but like, okay, like what is the best I can be for my remaining years, with this body that I have? Like, what is the best I can be, So
yeah, I think that there's an element of it all where you got to be realistic with yourself and your goals and expectations, but you also have to take the wins where they come, I love analogies, but I'm thinking about a little kid that is obsessed with basketball, right? And first of all, I don't know why I'm thinking, and you don't know anything about sports, and I don't know anything about sports, and I'm thinking about like somebody named Muggsy Bogues. Maybe he's not even a basketball player, but for some reason I'm thinking there's a short basketball, and by short I mean like 6 feet tall or maybe 5'11", right?
Yeah.
And that's like, really, really short for basketball players. There's one guy. And so if you're not this, ginormous, hulking athlete, and you have no sense of coordination, but you're just like, no, I need to have something to do with basketball. It's like, okay, figure out what you can accomplish and then have satisfaction in it. Because I too just wanted to be thin. And, for all intents and purposes, I got literally thin and still couldn't see that I'd achieved anything.
Yeah.
I never got to, I got to a 32 waist, and you might think like, that's not thin, but that was thin. I was thin at a 32 waist. I'm a 38 now, and I'm still like, damn, check me out. 38 is good. I've had to readjust. But when I was a 32, I thought if I could get to a 28, and I went to a doctor and he was like, your hips will never be, the bones in your hips will never be a 28. You cannot lose weight and become a 28. It's not possible. So this idea, and then I thought, because I have ginormous hip bones or something, I'm going to be fat. And it's just not, it's illogical.
Yeah.
So realistically, what can I do? Where can I get? And how can I be happy with that? Can I be happy with the wins? You and I had a fucking weird conversation once about a belt, and you could wear the belt And you still weren't happy. You were like, I just want to be able to wear this belt. And I was like, okay, try it on. And you were like, well, no, I did it. It fits. And even then there was no satisfaction in it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
and I know that feeling.
Yeah.
That feeling is the antithesis of mindset. Mindset is, what can I actually achieve? I don't give a shit about basketball, but if I needed like had this visceral need to be connected to basketball, I would have to also then be realistic about what that would mean. And maybe that means like the best I could possibly achieve for myself, if I'm being quite realistic, is like a janitor where the Lakers play. You know what I mean? Or if I worked really hard, I could maybe teach a junior high basketball team. You know, I'm never going to be a basketball player, but this is the version of reality that I have to confront. And I would have to go like, well, that would be the most I can get out of this thing. Thank God I don't care about basketball. But apply that to anything. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be in the Air Force. It's we're past that point. You know, I have flat feet. It's unfair. I'm just about 50 years old. I have arthritis in my hip. Like, choose your reasons why this is not in the cards for me. And this isn't defeatist either.
Yeah.
Because when we see the movie made about the guy, you know, there was a movie about Mike Pena, our friend of the pod. Mike Pena was in a movie about a guy who was like the child of migrant parents.
Right.
And then he becomes an astronaut, right? And they made a movie about him because he's the guy who won the lottery. This is not in the cards for all of us. So I don't want to say like everybody shouldn't shoot for their dreams, but if you got 1 million people who want to be astronauts and there's going to be 10 astronauts, what do you tell the 900,000 plus other people? I don't want to say like, well, just don't be too broken up when you're not an astronaut.
Right.
You know, try, but like find satisfaction in the life you have also.
Yeah, I love that so much. It's just such an important reminder because you can live your life just feeling a constant sense of disappointment, failure, whatever you want to call it, right? Even if it's like a low grade thing, right? Because there's like utter devastation about something, right? And there's like struggle. And then there's just like this low grade thing where you can go through life and be like, oh man, too bad I didn't get skinny. Too bad I didn't win the lottery. Too bad I don't have this career thing that guy had, whatever, and coveting other things and people, but can just be really low grade. That's my experience anyway, you know?
No, totally. And we love the stories about the guy, the janitor who becomes the astronaut. I think he was a janitor in that movie, right? Something like that.
I don't know. I didn't see it.
Okay, well, we love the stories about the guy who wins the lottery.
Yeah.
These give us hopes, but I think they're also kind of traps. It's like, what about the guy who worked his ass off and was really happy with his life, and his life wasn't winning the lottery? His life was like, he treated people in a way that made him feel good, and he behaved in a way that made him feel good, and he was satisfied with what he achieved. You know what I mean? Like, are your behaviors leading you to feel better or worse? There was a time where my behaviors were making me feel worse about myself. And when I changed them, I didn't get to the nirvana that I thought I would get to. And so I had to then go like, oh, well, I certainly like not being compulsive with food. I certainly feel better when I'm not compulsive with substances, but there's still a little more work to do. There's still like the feeling of satisfaction that I'm not a size 28 waist, but I'm not an 80 waist either anymore. You know what I mean? Like 38 from 80, I'll take it. I'll take it. because it's pretty good. Sub 20% body fat, I'll take it. I'll take it. If my choice is 50% body fat or 15% body fat, and I found that I couldn't maintain 9% body fat, I'll take 15. You know what I mean? And I'm going to find a way to be happy about it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Thank you for lending your viewpoint and sharing your expert advice on this topic of mindset. And as we roll into the holidays, which we'll talk about more in the weeks to come, this is so important. You know, it just is so important to, you know, just keep in mind not to make a pun.
Yeah. For me right now, I want to have Thanksgiving dinner with my family and not restrict myself at all. And at the same time, I want to not wake up feeling guilty.
Yeah.
You know, and that will require effort from me, because if I just spend the night going up and down the dessert table, I'm going to feel like crap the next day. I'm going to feel physically guilty because I'll have, you know, poisoned myself with sugar and fat.
Right.
So, you know, there's an in between there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%. 100%. Well,
Thank you,
Ethan
Paige.
Suplee, thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Yes.